Okay, I think we're recording. Hello everyone, this is the 5th Ethical Revelation Fellowship. I'm Reverend Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight is April 15th, Tax Day, and we're going to study Paper 41, The Physical Aspects of the Local Universe, from the Urantia book, and that starts on page 455.1. And sweetie, would you like to say a short prayer and we'll get started?
Dear Heavenly Father, Mother God, we thank you for this wonderful paper that we're going to be studying tonight. Although it's going to be difficult, it is an explanation of the local universe, and we are grateful that we have this opportunity to study it and learn and to grow from it. And it challenges our intellect, and we ask that you open our minds and help us to understand. Thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for each other, and thank you for our wonderful study group that comes together each week. And thank you for the in-home meeting we had at our home here on Sunday. It is in your name, Jesus Christ, Michael of Lebanon, we pray and give thanks and glory to you. Amen.
Amen. Okay.
Okay, I'm back again, and the same thing happened again.
You know, I was
Really
wondering,
tried to-
because a lot of people are doing their taxes online tonight, if we're going to be hurting because of the bandwidth or something. I don't know, would that affect us?
I don't know, to be
Yeah.
honest. It shouldn't, but you never know. There's more people than usual out there, I'm sure, online for
Yeah.
the tax thing tonight. You already got your taxes done, Rodney? Millie, we can't get through to. She says busy. And I don't see Tim. Well, let's try to get started here again. We might get interrupted a few times. I'm not sure. That's odd. Drop Millie again.
Okay, is Rodney still there?
Yeah. Rodney, you still there, right?
No,
No.
we just had to watch over. And Tim.
Rodney?
No, he'd be talking if he was there.
Okay, let me try it one more time. Here. Sorry, Rodney, I lost you again.
Well, yeah, that's because Millie just hung up. I was talking.
You were talking to Millie? Rodney? Isn't this?
I am. Maybe this will work. Okay. Wait a minute.
I still am not seeing Millie.
Do we have a telephone number?
That's because when she clicks in, when she picks up, it does something that kicks you off.
Really?
When you're on, she's off, and when she's on, you're on.
It looks like I got her now. Millie, you out there?
Yes, I am.
Oh.
Interesting. I had two little windows up in the top right, and they both had, one of them had you, and I don't know what the other one had. So I clicked on the telephone on you, so that I could click on the phone or the video or whatever. But I clicked on the little box of it, not the thing across the bottom. I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, I don't either, but it kept knocking Rodney off for some reason. But anyway, let's get started. I've already.
And then Tim was trying to get on too.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Well,
Or you were just trying to call him.
I was trying to call him. Yeah, I don't see him out there. So if he tries to call back, I'll try to add him to the group. Let's get started. This is a long paper.
This is not a nice lesson.
Yes,
No,
It's all technical.
it is. I was saying that earlier today, Millie. It's not a glorious lesson by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of technical stuff, and we're going to be doing a lot of reading to get through it, so that we've covered the material.
Is that the physical aspect?
Physical aspects of the universe. I'm going to do a little explanation at the beginning of the first couple sections, but the rest of it's pretty much reading. There's not much else I can say about it because it's very technical, and I don't know how much I can elaborate on it, to be honest. So we'll read through it. We should get through it in one night. It's 10 sections, so it's pretty long. But it's got a lot of information in it. So let's go ahead and get started so we can get through it. All right, dear, will you start out tonight?
I will.
Okay.
Paper 41, Physical Aspects of the Local Universe. The characteristic space phenomenon which sets off each local creation from all others is the presence of the creative spirit. All Nebadon is certainly pervaded by the space presence of the Divine Minister of Salvington, and such presence just as certainly terminates at the outer borders of our local universe. That which is pervaded by our local universe Mother Spirit is Nebadon. That which extends beyond her space presence is outside Nebadon, being the extra Nebadon space regions of the super-universe of Orvanton, other local universes.
All right. And what I want to show in this picture is basically, let me see if I can get this to work. Yeah. This is our local universe. This is where Michael and the local Mother Spirit came together.
Watch out.
Oh, that's going to drive the cats crazy. Everything outside this burst of light is outside of Nebadon. And anything outside of Nebadon is not covered by our local universe Mother Spirit, right? When you go outside her presence, you're outside of Nebadon, period. Anything inside this, you're inside her domain, right? Okay, I've got a couple other slides I want to show you on this, too. I can't use the pointer, it drives kitties crazy. This is the beginning of time and of our local universe, and this is where I've just drawn a blank. The primary force organizers start organizing what they call Poussant energy. This is before gravity takes over, okay? And then the next step down is when this is a pre-energy. This is where the force organizers transmit that force over to the associate force organizers, and then finally to the master force organizers. Okay, so this is the beginning of the process in essence, right? The cats are going to sit here for an hour looking at this now. When the master force organizers take over, all right, then shortly after that's when gravity takes over. That's when gravity takes over, and when gravity takes over, then it's ready for the creator sons to assume the role of creatorship, right? Okay, and it says here, gravity, now appearing gravity response energies carries the potential of universe power, which becomes the active ancestor to all universe matter. Okay, so this is at the beginning, and then at this point, when gravity takes over, then's when the super universe centers, the system centers, the constellation center, and the local universe centers take over that energy and matter. Okay, and it says here, upon the completion of the plans for the creation of the local universe, signalized by the arrival of a creator son, the associate master force organizers give way to the orders of power directors, and that's involved in this. So these are the step downs from the centers, okay? Acting in the super universe of astronomic jurisdiction. But in the absence of such plans, the associate force organizers continue on identifying indefinitely in charge of these material creations, even as they now operate in outer space. Okay, so this is what's going on in the outer space levels too, right? Is these master force organizers and the associate force organizers are organizing the local universes in outer space, okay? Up to the point where the creator sons take over, excuse me. The reason I went through all of this is it brings in all this information in these slides to come. Okay? So that's where we are. Okay. See if I can read this. I lost my glasses today. I may turn and read this tonight because the big ones I can't read. While the administrative organization of the Grand Universe discloses a clear-cut division between the governments of the central super and local universes, And while these divisions are astronomically parallel in the space separation of Havona and the 7 superuniverses, no such clear lines of physical demarcation set off the local creations. Even the major and minor sectors of Orvonton are, to us, clearly distinguishable, but it is not so easy to identify the physical boundaries of the local universes. This is because these local creations are administratively organized in accordance with certain creative principles governing the segmentation of the total energy charge of the superuniverse, whereas their physical components, the spheres of space, suns, dark islands, planets, etc., take origin primarily from nebulae, and these make our astronomical appearance in accordance with certain pre-creative transcendental plans of the architects of the master universe. That's one of those paragraphs that Millie just loves. There's no break. It's one long sentence.
No commas, no periods, just go on and on.
Just go on and on and on. This run-on sentence almost, right?
I have friends that talk like that.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just kind of explain this in a nutshell. These first few I'm going to try to go through a little bit. First of all, what they're saying is when you look from outer space into the super universes and the minor sectors, the major sectors, through our telescopes, it's hard to distinguish any breaks at all, right? Because of the way we're looking, the position in which we're looking in through it, right? But to them, there's clear demarcations between these aggregations of planets and matter. But it's not so clear to us. And it's the same way with the governments. Okay? The governments and how it's ruled is exactly the same thing. It's hard for us to tell them apart. Okay, that's the short version. Okay?
And I think it's also because, there's a lot of, you might not say overlapping, but stuff that intrudes, it's a wobbly line.
That's right, it is a wobbly line, and even the creation of the local universe depends on whether it was created from one part of nebulae or multiple parts of nebulae,
Exactly.
right? So it makes it even more confusion. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Okay, but also what it's saying is that wherever the mother spirit is, that's
Yeah, that's our clear demarcation for sure.
Yeah.
Wherever the local universe mother spirit ends, our local universe ends, right?
And she knows that, so
And
it's very clear to
she
her.
knows exactly where that
And our
is.
creator son.
Yeah, and the creator son. All right, Rodney.
okay. One or more, even many such nebulae may be encompassed within the domain of a single local universe, even as Nebadon was physically assembled out of the stellar and planetary progeny of Andronover and other nebulae. The spheres of Nebadon are of diverse nebular ancestry, but they all had a certain minimum commonness of space motion, which was so adjusted by the intelligent efforts of the power directors as to produce our present aggregation of space bodies, which travel along together as a continuous unit over the orbits of the superuniverse.
Yeah, contiguous units over. Yeah.
Contiguous.
Right. Now the power directors basically control this, right? And that's what they're talking about here. Okay. Millie, would you take the next one?
Turn that microphone.
Wait a minute, what?
Such is the constitution of the local star cloud of Nebadon, which today swings in an increasingly settled orbit about the Sagittarius sun of that minor sector of Orvonton, to which our local creation belongs.
Okay. I skipped a whole bunch here.
You did?
Yeah, I don't know how I did that.
Should I go back and read one or more? Even no, Rodney read that.
Okay.
We read it all.
Hang on.
But
No, it's my slides here. Y'all give me a second. Let me get back to where I was. Okay.
You want number one, the Nevadon Power Centers.
Okay. All right. Now I'm back. I'm good. It's my second one. My problem. Got it straightened out. Okay. Dear, would you take the next one?
So in other words, we're in the center of the Sagittarius.
Yeah, we're part of the Sagittarius star cluster, basically.
cluster.
Yeah, and we're part of that, along with many other local universes, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
1. The Nevadon Power Centers. The spiral and other nebulae, the mother wheels of the spheres of space, are initiated by Paradise Force organizers, and following nebular evolution of gravity response, they are superseded in super-universe function by the power centers and physical controllers, who thereupon assume full responsibility for directing the physical evolution of the ensuing generations of stellar and planetary offspring. This physical supervision of the Nevadon pre-universe was, upon the arrival of our Creator Son, immediately coordinated with his plan for universe organization. Within the domain of this Paradise Son of God, the Supreme Power Centers and the Master Physical Controllers collaborated with the latter, appearing Morontia Power Supervisors and others to produce that vast complex of communication lines, energy circuits, and power lanes which firmly bind the manifold space bodies of Nevadon into one integrated administrative unit.
Okay. So this is basically the Master Force organizers. This is pre-Nevadon, right? Okay, and they go to a right angle. They're before the the power centers. Okay, and the Master Force organizers go basically where is this? At a right angle of the plane of the rotary disk of creation, basically, and that's how everything. This is emergent Andronover nebulae, and when they do this, the matter comes out of it, okay, and they separate it for the local universe. That's the technical way to say it.
You know, it almost sounds like a bunch of electricians got together to figure out where all these lines were going to be laid.
That's right. Basically, that's pretty close to it. And then they get to a certain point, and then the power centers take over, right? And when the power centers take over, the whole organization of everything power-wise for the entire local universe gets set up, okay?
Yeah, it
And
sounds like that's almost, like you say, the power source to energize these lines.
that's right, it's a power grid in essence, okay? But not in the sense of a power grid we would think. We're not just talking about just electricity. We're talking about all the energies that create the local universe.
Sort of like microwaves or directional
That's right.
communication lines.
Yeah, it is. All right, 100 Supreme Power Centers of the Fourth Order are permanently assigned to the local universe. These beings receive the incoming lines of power from the Third Order centers of Uversa. It just steps down, right? And they relay the down-stepped and modified circuits to the power centers of our constellations and systems. These power centers in association function to produce the living systems of control and equalization which operates to maintain the balance and distribution of otherwise fluctuating and variable energies. Power centers are not, however, concerned with transient and local energy upheavals such as sunspots and system electric disturbances. Light and electricity are not the basic energies of space. They are secondary and subsidiary manifestations. So it's not just electricity. Now, remember, what are they talking about here? They're talking about the circuits or the emanations coming from the Isle of Paradise. Does that make sense? You know the circuits we've covered before: the father circuit, the personality circuit, the son circuit, the mindal circuit, and the the material circuit. This is part of the material circuit of Paradise.
Yeah,
Okay.
which goes through Uversa.
That's what goes through Uversa. That's exactly right.
And then it's down-stepped. It's just too much
That's right.
power.
That's right, just down step. Now this is the local universe centers, the centers they were talking about. This is the 100 Nebadon power centers. And it comes from the super universe center, right? You see the line there, to Salvington, and goes to the constellation centers and the core of Norlashadek and Adentia, and eventually down to the planets, okay? This is the super universe centers. This is the one in Uversa, okay? And of course it goes down to the local universe centers. So it just shows you the breakdown. All right, and then finally it gets down to Adentia. And this is the system center. One supreme power center is permanently assigned to each local universe. These system centers dispatch the power circuits to the inhabited worlds of time and space. Okay? And that's what that looks like. All right. Now this is the other down stepping that I just want to show you so that you can get an idea of the pattern going down. So it goes from the master physical controller to the who are the direct offspring of the supreme power centers, and their number includes the associate power directors, then the mechanical controllers, then the energy transformers, energy transmitters, primary associators, secondary disassociators, and finally the Framden Lanks and Chronodex, which we studied before. Okay? Alright, so let's keep going. This is most of the slides that I have for this, and we'll cover this later. Okay. Rodney, I think you're up next.
Okay, the 100 local universe centers were stationed on Salvington, where they function at the exact energy center of that sphere. Architectural spheres, such as Salvington, Adentia, and Jerusalem, are lighted, heated, and energized by methods which make them quite independent of the suns of space. These spheres were constructed, made to order, in other words, custom built,
Yep.
by the power centers and physical controllers, and were designed to exert a powerful influence over energy distribution, basing their activities on such focal points of energy control. The power centers, by their living presence, directionalize and channelize the physical energies of space. And these energy circuits are basic to all physical, material, and miraculous spiritual phenomena.
So these beings are really power energy directors, right? This stuff comes through them and goes out to wherever it needs to go. They must be humongous. I can't even imagine. But they're living mechanisms, in a sense, right? All right, let's keep going. Millie.
10 supreme power centers of the fifth order are assigned to each of Nebadon's primary subdivisions, the 100 constellations. In Norlashadek, your constellation, they are not stationed on the headquarters sphere, but are situated at the center of the enormous stellar system, which constitutes the physical core of the constellation. On Adentia, there are 10 associated mechanical controllers and 10 Framden who are in perfect and constant liaison with the nearby power centers.
Okay, so there's 10 of these supreme power centers of the fifth order. You notice it says the fifth order. Notice how these keep going down in order. So they start at the first order, second order, third order, and as you go down from Paradise all the way down through the central universe, they finally get down to Nebadon, and that's on the fifth order. What would be the sixth order? That would be, well, no, that would actually be the Satania and Adentia, the local capitals, right? Okay, so
He's coming up next.
yeah, he'd be coming up next. That's right. All right, and this is a picture of basically the 10 associated mechanical controllers, and the 10 Frandalanks, who are perfect and constant liaison with the nearby power centers. Okay, and that's what this is, an illustration of that. Okay, then the next illustration is the Frandalanks. You know, we've talked about these in a previous paper, and these beings are the joint creation of all three orders of the energy control beings, the primary and secondary force organizer, and the power directors. Frandalanks are the most numerous of the master physical controllers. The number functioning in Satania alone is above your numerical concept. They are stationed on all inhabited planets and always attached to the higher orders of physical controllers. So if you wanted to say who is the sixth or seventh, it would probably be the Frandalanks, because they're the last down stepping, right? Okay, but there's probably billions and billions and billions of these mechanical physical controllers on the planet. Now, when Christ did his miracles, who do you think came into order on these? The Frandalanks, because those are the local planet version of the power directors, right? Or master physical controllers. That makes sense? That's why I put those pictures in there. Okay. Sweetie, can you take that? Millie just read it.
One supreme power center of the sixth order is stationed at the exact gravity focus of each local system. In the system of Satania, the assigned power center occupies a dark island of space located at the astronomic center of the system. Many of these dark islands are vast dynamos which mobilize and directionalize certain space energies, and these natural circumstances are effectively utilized by the Satania Power Center, whose living mass functions as a liaison with the higher centers, directing the streams of more materialized power to the master physical controllers on the evolutionary planets of space.
So these are the sixth order, right? Now notice it says a dark space body. Do y'all see that?
Dark island.
Dark island of space, which does not reflect light, it only absorbs light,
So
right?
are those the black holes?
Are these the black holes we keep seeing in space? Probably, you know. But these are power centers. They control the influx and influx plus the exit of these powers, right, down through the universe. And these supreme power centers of the sixth order are stationed within these dark islands, which makes perfect sense because it influxes in and then they control it from there. It's the balancing wheel for all the power of the universe. Okay? Alright, and this is a picture of the six system centers. And this one's stationed at Adentia, and it says, one supreme power center is permanently assigned to each local universe. These system centers dispatch the power circuits to the inhabited worlds of time and space. So this is our local capital, Jerusalem, right? So that it sends out the power to the local planets. Okay.
It does sound like those are black holes.
It does sound like they're black holes. I mean, you know, and it was really funny. I was at when we were at the retreat up at the, what was the places, at the monk's place. I can't think of the name of it.
North Carolina?
Yeah.
North Carolina, yeah. A guy had that's been a ranch book reader for years. Considered himself a real scientist, and I was talking to him alone, and he said he had problem with this paper because he couldn't understand how the dark islands in space could be there. You know, the scientists have found, and that was the perfect explanation of it. You know, it really was. And I tried to explain that to him, but we didn't have enough time, you know, to do that. But anyway, you know, everything's explained. It might not come out the way you think it should, but it's in there, you know. So
Well,
anyway,
back then, there wasn't a word for black holes
no, there weren't
for us.
words long ago for black holes. You
They
know.
call them dark islands.
They call them dark islands.
We call them black holes.
Yeah, and we call them black holes. That's all we know is that the light does not reflect from them. That's all we really know. We know that light gets absorbed by them, and it doesn't reflect it back. So that's all we really know about them, other than that there's a black hole out there. right? And the dark islands of space makes perfect sense for, really. So, okay, let's keep going. Am I out? Oh. The Satania physical controllers. While the master physical controllers serve with the power centers throughout the grand universe, they'll function in a local system such as Satania. That's the name of our local system. It's not after Satan. Satan was named after Satania, right? Okay. Are more easy of comprehension. Satania is one of 100 local systems which make up the administrative organization of the constellation of Norleshadek, our constellation, having an immediate neighbors the systems of Samesha, Susantia, Paranja, Susorshria, Rantuya, and Gantanoia.
Glad to know that.
The Norleshadek systems differ in many respects, but all are evolutionary and progressive, much like Satania. So these are the other local systems, right, in the constellations, our neighbors. Kind of interesting to hear who's around us, right? All right, and this is an illustration of the power directors in the local universe power centers. I just threw that in there. Okay. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Yes. Satania itself is composed of over 7,000 astronomical groups, or physical systems, few of which have an origin similar to that of your local system. The astronomic center of Satania is an enormous dark island of space which, with its attendant spheres, is situated not far from the headquarters of the system government.
Okay, so Satania has a dark island that's not far from where? Jerusalem,
Headquarters.
right?
So it kind of protects it.
No, it's the power grid for this local system. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. Millie.
Yes, except for the presence of the assigned power center, the superdivision of entire physical energy system of Satania is centered on Jerusalem. A master physical controller stationed on this headquarters sphere works in coordination with the system power center, serving as liaison chief of the power inspectors headquartered on Jerusalem and functioning throughout the local system.
Okay, so we know that there's one on Jerusalem, right? Okay, and he does his job and goes out to the different planets, right? And this is a picture of the master physical controller, the associate power directors in Jerusalem. It says these directors alternate periods of executive service in the minor sectors with equal periods of inspection service to the realms of space. At least one acting inspector is always present at each local system. Okay? Maintaining headquarters on its capital sphere. We know our capital sphere is what? Architectural sphere, which makes it what? Hollow, right? So it's a perfect place to work. They keep the whole vast living energy aggregation in harmonious synchrony. All right?
How do you know that the constructed spheres are hollow?
We don't know that they are. They just tell us that some of the headquarters spheres are hollow, basically. They're constructed spheres, and because of their the inside of it's hollow, their heating and lighting and everything is controlled from underground. Isn't that interesting? So it's a big hollow ball, in essence. But it's remember, they're 1,000 times the size of Urantia. They're huge, so, which makes it kind of interesting. All right, let's keep going. I think you're up.
And channelizing of energy is supervised by the 500,000 living and intelligent energy manipulators scattered throughout Satania. Through the action of such physical controllers, the supervising power centers are in complete and perfect control of a majority of the basic energies of space, including the emanations of highly heated orbs and the dark energy charged spheres. This group of living entities can mobilize, transform, transmute, manipulate, and transmit nearly all of the physical energies of organized space. Wow.
So these controllers control everything, right? Everything that's physical. Now, not only that, let me go back. Not only physical, but Morontia also, right? So all the Morontia spheres are controlled by them too. All right. Oh, this is something I found a slide that's kind of interesting about this. This is the Supreme Power Center. So together with other types of master physical controllers, energy transmitters are the direct offspring of the Supreme Power Centers. And these are energy transmitters. These are one of the downsteppings of the controllers. And they also have the 10 mechanical controllers, right? And the 1,000 energy transmitters right here. Okay, it says departure of seraphic transport. I thought this was kind of interesting. This is a seraphic transport leaving here. We've seen this slide before when we talked about seraphim. Okay, this is where this comes in. It says the transport dispatcher, the realm summoned the auxiliary batteries of the living energy transmitters, usually 1,000 in number. Okay, it takes 1,000 of these. As he announces the destination of the transport, he reaches out and touches the near point of seraphic carriage, which shoots forward with lightning-like speed. So it's because of these energy transformers that the seraphim are able to take off from the planet. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was kind of cool. All right. Life has inherent capacity for the mobilization and transmutation of universal energy. You are familiar with the action of vegetable life in transforming the material energy of light into the varied manifestations of the vegetable kingdom. You know, the vegetables take in light, use that energy and grow, right? We eat the vegetables or the other animals, and we take that energy and we transform it into living energy so we can grow and live, right? Just the basics of energy. All right. You also know something of the method whereby this vegetative energy can be converted into the phenomena of animal activities, but you know practically nothing of the technique of the power directors and the physical controllers who are endowed with the ability to mobilize, transform, directionize, and concentrate the manifold energies of space that we don't know anything about, right?
How would we?
Yeah, we have no reference point, do we?
Yeah, we don't.
Okay. This is, we've already gone over this slide. I stuck it in there because they talk about the frandolites too. Rodney, would you take the next one?
These beings of the energy realms do not directly concern themselves with energy as a component factor of living creatures, not even with the domain of
Physiological chemistry. Physiological
chemistry. They are sometimes concerned with the physical preliminaries of life, with the elaboration of those energy systems which may serve as the physical vehicles for the living energies of elementary material organisms. In a way, the physical controllers are related to the prevailing manifestations of material energy, as the adjutant mind spirits are concerned with the pre-spiritual functions of material mind.
Okay, this is kind of interesting. Let me kind of tell you what they're talking about here. These controllers are not concerned with our everyday lives, okay, and how we convert energy or plant and animal energy to life energy for ourselves. What they are concerned with are the pre-living energy. This is like before the implantation of life, and once implantation of life starts, that sort of thing. They work kind of like the adjutant mind spirits when who work when human beings first start out, trying to get them into the spiritual realm. Well, the physical controllers work with energies trying to get us to the physical realm. So they're akin to that. They're the precursors to actual life, right? Just like the mind spirits are the precursors to what? Actual spiritual life. Does that make sense? Did I go over everybody's head? Or?
When you say actual life, you mean Marancha life?
No, I'm talking about physical matter type life, Rodney. They have to do with the Marancha life too, but what they're talking about here is the material life. Okay?
Right.
But they work more pre-human than they do after human, because once we become human, it's more of an automatic thing. It's the difference between the autonomic nervous system and the regular nervous system. You know, the autonomic nervous system's automatic. This is an automatic thing once they get it started, right? For us to survive, we have to be able to break down animal and vegetable life to give us energy to continue. If we couldn't, what would happen? We would die, right? So, and it's kind of interesting they compare this to the adjutant mind spirits. If we do not listen to the adjutant mind spirits and try to get our life to a spiritual life, then what happens to us? We die, right? It's the same principle. All right. Millie, would you take the next one, please? Here.
These intelligent creatures of power control and energy direction must adjust their technique on each sphere in accordance with the physical constitution and architecture of that planet. They unfailingly utilize the calculations and deductions of their respective staff of physicists and other technical advisors regarding the local influence of highly heated suns and other types of supercharged stars. Even the enormous cold and dark giants of space and the swarming clouds of stardust must be reckoned with. All of these material things are concerned in the practical problems of energy manipulation.
Okay, so they need to know how to work around everything, not just their local stuff, but the influence of the local universe, the super universe, the constellation, the minor major sectors, and the physical things that come in.
Well, the swarming clouds of stardust have energy too, coming from somewhere.
They do. Everything's got to be reckoned with. You know, there's no such thing as dead space out there. And that's what our scientists think, that space is void in place. It's not. There's no such thing as void space. Even space...
Something's going on everywhere.
There's something going on anywhere. That's exactly right, Millie. Okay, you want to take the next?
So, Roger,
Yeah.
these guys, they must know calculus and algebra.
Oh, yeah. They probably know things that we don't even have names for Rodney, above that, right? Okay.
The power energy supervision of the evolutionary inhabited worlds is the responsibility of the master physical controllers, but these beings are not responsible for all energy misbehavior on Urantia. There are a number of reasons for such disturbances, some of which are beyond the domain and control of the physical custodians. Urantia is in the lines of tremendous energies, a small planet in the circuit of enormous masses, and the local controllers sometimes employ enormous numbers of their order in an effort to equalize these lines of energy. They do fairly well with regard to the physical circuits of Satania, but have trouble insulating against the powerful Melchizedek currents.
Okay, so they have to balance out between the different currents of different influences, right? But they are not responsible for the physical upheavals of the planets. You know, storms, electrical storms, volcanoes, all that sort of thing, okay? Tsunamis, etc., etc., etc. Okay, our starry associates. There are upward of 2,000 brilliant stars pouring forth light... Suns, I'm sorry. Pouring forth light and energy in Satania, and your own sun is an average blazing orb. Of the 30 suns nearest yours, there are only 3 are brighter. The universe power directors initiate the specialized currents of energy which play between the individual stars and their respective systems. These solar furnaces, together with the dark giants of space, serve the power centers and physical controllers as way stations for the effective concentrating and directionizing of the energy circuits of the material creation. So all the circuits of the energy come from the suns, right? All right.
And I should point out, there's a difference between dark islands and these dark giants.
That's right, there are. Right.
Dark giants, they've actually discovered with our there is at least one gigantic planet that is a dark planet. It absorbs light.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
can't see
and
it.
some of these are burnt-out stars too, Rodney. There's lots of variation of these dark islands and dark planets and that sort of thing. So remember, there's a circuit of dark planets or dark islands that surround Paradise, right? There's two different circuits that go two different directions, right? Okay, they're the balancing wheels of the super universe. All right, Rodney, would you take the next one? Rodney?
Is it Noah's turn?
Yeah, no, it's Rodney's turn.
Oh, is it?
Turn on your mic. Rodney? Anybody?
Rodney, you still there? I lost him. He's back. Rodney, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, would you take the next paragraph, please?
All right. Paragraph starting with the word when.
No, the sons of Nebulon. Nebadon.
The sons. So the sons of Nebadon are not unlike other universes. The material composition of all suns, dark and satellites.
Fade in now.
I'm losing you, Rodney, in and out. You still there? No, Rodney. We lost him. Millie, would you take the next one? And then when he comes back, it's trying to get
The
him
one
back.
that Rodney was going to read?
Yeah, would you please, dear?
The sons of Nebadon are not unlike those of other universes. The material compositions of all suns, dark islands, planets and satellites, even meteors, is quite identical. The suns have an average diameter of about 1 million miles, that of your own solar orb being slightly less. The largest star in the universe, the stellar cloud Antares, is 450 times the diameter of your sun, and is 60 million times its volume. But there is abundant space to accommodate all these enormous suns. They have just as much comparative elbow room in space as 1 dozen oranges would have if they were circulating about throughout the interior of Urantia, and were the planet a hollow globe.
Okay, so there's enough space out there between all of them that they're not going to run into each other, right?
Yeah.
We've lost Rodney completely. Hopefully we'll get him back in a minute. Okay, dear?
When suns that are too large are thrown off a nebular mother wheel, they soon break up or form double stars. All suns are originally truly gaseous, though they may later transiently exist in a semi-liquid state. When your sun attained this quasi-liquid state of supergas pressure, it was not sufficiently large to split equatorially,
Yep.
this being one type of double star formation.
So when our sun got to a certain point, it wasn't big enough to split. All right.
When I listened to the DVD with Merritt Horn, he added a word in there, and I don't know where that came from. It was when your own sun attained this quasi-liquid state.
Ah,
My book doesn't say that, but that's what he said.
When your son attends.
When your own son is what he said.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
that's I believe what he said on the DVD.
Oh, okay, so he just.
Once in a while, he puts in an extra word, but
Yeah.
not very often.
I don't know what happened to Rodney here. Let me see if I can add him back.
I'm gonna go check my dinner.
Okay.
I missed Tim tonight too.
Huh?
I missed Tim tonight too.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. So let me see if we can dial Rodney back here. You there, Rodney?
Okay.
All right. We got you back. Rodney, we're on 4134. We went ahead and did 2 paragraphs while you were gone. So, okay, am I up? Okay. We're on 3-4. Rodney, I'm going to read. When less than 1/10 the size of your sun, these fiery spheres rapidly contract, condense, and cool. When upwards of 30 times its size, rather 30 times the gross content of actual material. Do we have a problem with that? Suns readily split into 2 separate bodies, either becoming the centers of new systems or else remaining in each other's gravity grasp and revolving about a common center
I'm back.
as one type of
Hey.
double star. That's good.
We got Rodney.
Yeah, we got Rodney. Okay, Rodney,
Yeah.
let's try to read the next one, the most recent. You there, Rodney?
We lose you again, Rodney?
Yeah, we lost him
Aw.
again. Okay, Millie, would you take the next one, please? The most recent?
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. You want to try to read the next, Rodney? The most recent? He's coming in and out.
I don't think he's...
Okay. I'm back. I think it's mother. Okay, where?
The most recent of the 3-5.
Is that right?
The most recent of the major cosmic.
Come on, yeah.
Under our starry associates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph.
Millie, go ahead and take it. We'll get him
The
on
most
it.
recent of the major cosmic eruptions on Arvaton was the extraordinary double star explosion, the light of which reached Urantia in AD 1572. This conflagration was so intense that the explosion was clearly visible in broad daylight.
I bet that was something to see.
Do you think anybody wrote about it?
I don't know. It's probably in the history book somewhere. More than likely. Sweetie, would you take the next one?
Not all stars are solid, but many of the older ones are. Some of the reddish, faintly glimmering stars have acquired a density at the center of their enormous masses, which would be expressed by saying that 1 cubic inch of such a star, if on Urantia, would weigh 6,000 pounds. The enormous pressure, accompanied by loss of heat and circulating energy, has resulted in bringing the orbits of the basic material units closer and closer together, until they now closely approach the status of electronic condensation. This process of cooling and contraction may continue to the limiting and critical explosion point of ulti-atomic condensation.
Ultimatonic.
Ultimatonic
Yeah,
condensation.
right.
Thank you.
Most of the giant suns are relatively young. Most of the dwarf stars are old, but not all. The collisional dwarfs may be very young and may glow with an intense white light, never having known an initial red stage of youthful shining. Both very young and very old suns usually shine with a reddish glow. The yellow tinge indicates moderate youth or approaching old age, but the brilliant white light signifies robust and extended adult life. Interesting to know how our sun appears out to other planets. Rodney, you want to take the next one?
Okay,
Try
bear
it
with
again.
me.
All right.
Okay. While all adolescent suns do not pass through a pulsating stage, Am I coming through okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're coming through great.
Okay. At least not visibly. Looking out into space, you may observe many of these younger stars whose gigantic material leaves require from 2 to 7 days to complete a cycle. Your own sun still carries a diminishing legacy of the mighty dwellings of its young days, but the periods lengthened from the former 3 1/2 day pulsations to the present 11 1/2 year spot cycle.
Isn't that interesting?
Big
Our
difference.
11-year sunspot cycle is a normal thing with the aging of a star, which is kind of interesting. Millie, would you take the next one?
Yes. Stellar variables have numerous origins. In some double stars, the tides caused by rapidly changing distances as the two bodies swing around their orbits also occasion periodic fluctuations of light. These gravity variations produce regular and recurrent flares, just as the capture of meteors by the accretion of energy materials. Is that a word?
Yes. Accretion.
Accretion of
Yeah.
energy materials. It's got a hyphen.
Yeah.
At the surface would result in a comparatively sudden flash of light, which would speedily recede to normal brightness for that sun. Sometimes a sun will capture a stream of meteors in a line of lessened gravity opposition, and occasionally collisions cause stellar flare-ups, but the majority of such phenomena are wholly due to internal fluctuations.
All right. It's kind of funny how our scientists keep trying to predict different things that are happening. It's a normal process of the aging of the sun,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that is interesting.
All right, dear.
In one group of variable stars, the period of light fluctuation is directly dependent on luminosity, and knowledge of this fact enables astronomers to utilize such suns as universe lighthouses or accurate measuring points for the further exploration of distant sun clusters. By this technique, it is possible to measure stellar distances most precisely up to more than 1 million light years. Better methods of space measurement and improved telescopic technique will sometime more fully disclose the 10 grand divisions of the superuniverse of our Vontan. You will at least recognize 8 of these immense sectors as enormous and fairly symmetrical star clusters.
So eventually we'll be able to see these things, right? Gonna freak scientists out, isn't it? For sun density. The mass of your sun is slightly greater than the estimate of your physicists. You have reckoned it as about 2 octillion. That's 2 times 10 to the 27 tons. It now exists about halfway between the most dense and the most diffuse stars, having about 1.5 times the density of water. But your sun is neither a liquid nor a solid. It is a gaseous. And this is true notwithstanding the difficulty of explaining how gaseous matter can attain this and even much greater densities. And that's a picture of the size of our sun compared to Earth, right? All right. Rodney, would you take the next one?
A gaseous, liquid, and solid are matters of atomic molecular relationships, but density is the relation of mass. Density varies directly with the quantity of mass in space, and inversely with the amount of space and mass. The space between cores of matter and the particle on these centers, as well as the space within such material particles.
Okay, and this is a picture of the gaseous sun. Okay, that's my last picture, I think.
These are great pictures tonight.
Yeah. These are pictures I pulled from other papers. Okay. Millie, would you take the next one? I think that's it with the pictures tonight. Millie?
didn't want you to listen to my cat yowling at me. He wants to well. I need to go let him out. Cooling stars can be physically gaseous and tremendously dense at the same time. You are not familiar with the solar supergases, but these and other unusual forms of matter explain how even non-solid suns can attain a density equal to iron, about the same as Urantia, and yet being in the highly heated gaseous state and continue to function as suns. The atoms in these dense supergases are exceptionally small. They contain few electrons. Such suns have also largely lost their free ultimatomic stores of energy.
And we don't even know what the ultimaton is yet. I think they've finally discovered it, but I don't know if they call it ultimaton or not.
I'm
Okay.
complicated.
One of your nearby suns, which started life with about the same mass as yours, has now contracted almost to the size of Urantia, having become 40,000 times as dense as your sun. The weight of this hot, cold, gaseous solid is about 1 ton per cubic inch, and still the sun shines with a faint reddish glow, the senile glimmer of a dying monarch of light.
Most of the suns, however, are not so dense. One of your nearest neighbors has an exact density exactly equal to that of your atmosphere at sea level. If you were in the interior of the sun, you would be unable to discern anything. The temperature permitted, you could penetrate the majority of the suns which twinkle in the night sky and notice no more than you perceive in the air of your earthly living rooms. That's interesting, isn't it? All right, Rodney. You were there, Rodney? Rodney, we can't hear you. Lost
Lose
him.
Rodney again?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Millie, would you take? Would you take it? Millie,
What?
you want to take it?
Okay. The massive sun of Valentia, one of the largest in Brabant, has a density only of 1,000th that of Urantia's atmosphere. Were it in composition similar to your atmosphere and not superheated, it would be such a vacuum that human beings would speedily suffocate if they were in or on it.
Okay.
Where are you, Rodney?
You
I
back?
just read this to myself.
Well, good. You read it to yourself. Go ahead. Let's do it.
It's,
We're 2 paragraphs down now.
Another, yeah.
No, you go ahead.
Another of the Orvonton giants now has a surface temperature a trifle under 3,000 degrees. Its diameter is over 300 million miles, ample room to accommodate your sun and the present orbit of the Earth. Wow. And yet, for all this enormous size, over 40 million times that of your sun, its mass is only about 30 times greater. These enormous suns have an extending fringe that reaches almost from one to the other.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Huge sun. It's as big as
It's not just interesting, it's scary.
Yeah.
It is scary, yeah.
It's scary, isn't it?
There's
So-
a sun out there that's 40 times bigger than our sun, or
Yeah.
a bazillion times bigger than our sun. We're talking, massive, hot.
Huge. Yeah.
Don't
Huge.
touch, butter.
Solar radiation, section 5. That the suns of space are not very dense is proved by the steady streams of escaping light energies. Too great a density would retain light if opacity until the light energy pressure reached the explosion point. There is a tremendous light or gas pressure within a sun to cause it to shoot forth such a stream of energy as to penetrate space for millions upon millions of miles to energize, light, and heat the distant planets. Sorry, y'all, I can't see. 15 feet, let me turn it around here. 15 feet of surface of the density of Urantia would effectively prevent the escape of all X-rays and light energies from a sun until the rising internal pressure of accumulating energies resulting from atomic dismemberment became gravity with a tremendous outward explosion. I wish I could see this cat down here. All right. That's right. Rodney, would you take the next one? You out there? Okay.
Yes. Light, in the presence of the propulsive gases, is highly exposed when confined at temperatures by opaque retaining walls. Light is real. Short book. As you value energy and power in your world, somewhat economical,
At $1 million a pound, that's not economical to us, is it? All right. Millie, would you take the next one?
Yes. The interior of your sun is a vast X-ray generator. The suns are supported from within by the incessant bombardment of these mighty emanations.
Okay, so they've been around long before we discovered it, right? Right.
It requires more than 500,000 years for an X-ray stimulated electron to work its way from the very center of an average sun up to the solar surface, whence it starts out on its space adventure, maybe to warm an inhabited planet, to be captured by a meteor, to participate in the birth of an atom, to be attracted by a highly charged dark island of space, or to find its space flight terminated by a final plunge into the surface of a sun similar to the one of its origin.
So X-rays goes out and they keep going and going.
Don't you find it interesting that they're speaking of this X-ray as if it were a thing, a living thing?
It is a living thing, Millie. That's what, X-rays as we know it, for X-ray photographs, or when you go to the doctor and get an X-ray. We study this in medical school.
It starts on its space adventure, and it's going to warn the inhabitants of a planet.
Yeah,
captured
and
by a meteor.
Yeah,
You're talking about an X-ray.
Yeah, we duplicate that same process when we create an X-ray machine. We do the same thing that the sun does, and that's how we get the pictures. It goes all the way through you. X-rays don't stop by the human body or by matter. It'll go down about 15 foot until it hits lead. Lead actually will block it because of the density of lead. All right, then we go on. The X-rays of the sun's interior charge the highly heated and agitated electrons. Yeah?
It requires more than 500,000 years. We read that one. The X-rays is where we are.
Yeah, that's what did I forget to change it?
No, you're right.
No, you are right.
Oh, okay. The X-rays of the sun's interior charge the highly heated and agitated electrons with sufficient energy to carry them out through space, past the host of detaining influences or intervening matter, and in spite of the divergent gravity attractions onto the distant spheres of the remote systems. The great energy of velocity required to escape the gravity clutch of the sun is sufficient to assure that the sunbeam will travel on with unabated velocity until it encounters considerable masses of matter, whereupon it is quickly transformed into heat with the liberation of other energies. So it's the X-rays that helps carry the light and heat from the sun. All right, Rodney, you out there?
Can you hear me, Art?
Say it again, Rodney. You're breaking up bad.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
X-ray
Energy.
We're on.
Yeah, they're part of the light spectrum. You want me to read it?
Yeah, can you read 5 5, 6 energy, whether or light?
Can stand energy, whether it's light or in others, and its flight through space move forward. Actual particles of material exist to traverse space like a
A fusillade.
paper. They go in a straight and unbroken line. 4% as they persist. An example being the linear gravity pull and circular gravity presence of the hollow paradise.
So it keeps going and going and going, doesn't it? Except for the influence of paradise. Okay. Millie, would you take the next one?
Yeah, this is interesting. Solar energy may seem to be propelled in waves, but that is due to the action of coexistent and diverse influences. A given form of organized energy does not proceed in waves, but in direct lines. The presence of a second or third form of force energy may cause the stream under observation to appear to travel in wavy formations, just as in a blinding rainstorm accompanied by a heavy wind, water sometimes appears to fall in sheets or to descend in waves. The raindrops are coming down in a direct line of unbroken procession, but the action of the wind is such as to give the visible appearance of sheets of water and waves of raindrops.
That's interesting because we perceive X-rays as waves of X-rays. And in reality, it doesn't come down in waves of X-rays, it comes down in straight lines. It's kind of interesting. All right.
The action of certain secondary and other undiscovered energies present in the space regions of your local universe is such that solar light emanations appear to execute certain wavy phenomena as well as to be chopped up into infinitesimal infinitesimal, can't say it,
Yeah, that's fine.
portions of definite length and weight, and practically considers that is exactly what happens. You can hardly hope to arrive at a better understanding of the behavior of light until such a time as you acquire a clear concept of the interaction and interrelationship of the various space forces and solar energies operating in the space regions of Nebadon. Your present confusion is also due to your incomplete grasp of this problem as it involves the inter-associated activities of the personal and non-personal control of the master universe. The presences, the performances, and the coordination of the conjoint actor and the unqualified absolute. Okay.
And this is on top of the local universe mother spirit, right? Okay.
Boy, we're all in this thing together.
We're all in this thing together. Calcium, the wanderer of space. This is fascinating. In deciphering spectral phenomena, it should be remembered that space is not empty. That light in traversing space is sometimes slightly modified by the various forms of energy and matter, which circulate in all organized space. Some of the lines indicating unknown matter which appear in the spectrum of the sun are due to modifications of well-known elements which are floating throughout space in shattered form. The atomic casualties of the fierce encounters of the solar and elemental battles. Space is pervaded by these wandering derelicts, especially sodium and calcium, which were made up quite a bit of us, right? Rodney, would you take the next one?
Okay, if you guys can stand it.
All right.
You know, I've heard before this next sentence is wrong, that calcium is not. Anyway, it is in fact the chief element of the matter permutation of space throughout time. And that's what it's talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, you hear me? Yeah, okay. Our whole universe is sprinkled with minutely pulverized stone, Stone is literally the basic building matter for the planets and spheres of space. The cosmic cloud, the great space blanket, consists for the most part of the modified atoms of calcium. This is one of the most prevalent and persistent of the element. It not only endures solar ionization, splitting, but persists in associative identity even after it has been battered by the destructive X-rays and shattered by the high solar temperatures. Calcium possesses an individuality and a longevity excelling all of the more common forms of matter.
Okay, now what sentence was you saying is wrong, Rutten?
Read it before that somebody shot down the ranch boat because they're saying that sentence is false. That it was not the chief element of man speaks.
Okay, that's probably, Rodney, because their lack of understanding of the physics of the universe. Okay? And people make assumptions off of knowledge they know. They do not make assumptions off of revealed knowledge. So what they're doing is they're taking knowledge they've learned up to a certain point and trying to plug it into the physics of the universe. And that's why they'll take a sentence like this and try to shoot down the Urantia book from something about this. But these people that wrote this are not stupid. They're 10 million times more intelligent than we are. So if I have to choose between believing someone on their experience compared to a revelatory statement, I'm going to stick with the revelatory statement.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
Amen. Yes.
So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've heard other people try to say, well, this is wrong and that is wrong in the Urantia book, and many times it's a lack of understanding how the statement is used in the book. You know, and so I don't argue with them. I just let it go and forget it. You know, I chalk it up as lack of understanding. You know, I really do. Okay, Millie, would you take the next one? You out there, Millie?
Yes, I'm out here. I just have to turn this microphone on.
All right.
As your physicists have suspected, these mutilated remnants of solar calcium literally ride the light beams for very distances, and thus their widespread dissemination throughout space is tremendously facilitated. The sodium atom, under certain modifications, is also capable of light and energy locomotion. The calcium feat is all the more remarkable since this element has almost twice the mass of sodium. Local space permeations by calcium is due to the fact that it escapes from the solar photosphere in modified form by literally riding the outgoing sunbeams. Of all the solar elements, calcium, notwithstanding its comparative bulk, containing as it does 20 revolving electrons, is the most successful in escaping from the solar interior to the realms of space. This explains why there is a calcium layer, a gaseous stone surface, on the sun 6,000 miles thick, and this despite the fact that 19 lighter elements and numerous heavier ones are underneath.
Okay, so they have a calcium layer of stone, basically, that's 6,000 miles thick. Now think about this. Think about our own planet. Most of our own planet underneath is covered in what? Stone. What's the makeup of stone? Calcium, along with salt, right? So if you take off all the dirt and all the surface material of the planet, what do you end up with? Stone, right? That's why I put stock in this book, not what some scientist comes up with because he thinks he's smart, right? Right. Okay, dear.
Calcium is an active and versatile element at solar temperatures. The stone atom has two agile and loosely attached electrons in the two outer electronic circuits, which are very close together. Early in the atomic struggle, it loses its outer electron, whereupon it engages in a masterful act of juggling the 19th electron back and forth between the 19th and 20th circuits of electronic revolution. By tossing this 19th electron back and forth between its own orbit and that of its lost companion more than 25,000 times a second, a mutilated stone atom is able partially to defy gravity, and thus successfully to ride the emerging streams of light and energy, the sunbeams, to liberty and adventure. This calcium atom moves outward by alternate jerks of forward propulsion, grasping and letting go of the sunbeam about 25,000 times each second. And this is why stone is the chief component of the worlds of space. Calcium is the most expert solar prism escaper.
Want to hear another interesting fact about calcium? Calcium 19, it talks about somewhere in the book, and I don't remember where it was exactly, but supposedly this book was written was revealed in 1934, 1935, and they had not even discovered calcium 19 when this thing was revealed, and it's mentioned in the book, which is kind of interesting, you know. The agility of this acrobatic calcium electron is indicated by the fact that when tossed by the temperature X-ray solar forces to the circle of the higher orbit, it only remains in that orbit for about 1/1,000,000th of a second. 1/1,000,000th of a second, sorry. But before the electric gravity power of the atomic nucleus pulls it back into its old orbit, it is able to complete 1,000,000 revolutions about the atomic center. So that thing is cooking. Well, we lost Rodney again. And we had him back. Millie, would you take the next one till Rodney comes back? Oh, there he is. Rodney, you back? Hello? Rodney?
Gone again.
Gone again. Millie, would you take the next one?
Oh,
You're
now
back?
you read.
All right, we're on 6:6. Can you read?
Your sun has parted.
Hello, Rodney.
Millie, would you read, please?
I'm back.
We know. Millie, would you read, please?
Down at the bottom of the page, Rodney, read. It starts, your sun has parted with the enormous quantity. Nope. Okay, your sun has parted with an enormous quantity of its calcium, having lost tremendous amounts during the times of its convulsive eruptions in connection with the formation of the solar system. Much of the solar calcium is now in the outer crust of the sun.
All right.
It should be remembered that spectral analysis shows only sun surface compositions. For example, solar spectra exhibit many iron lines, but iron is not the chief element in the sun. This phenomenon is almost wholly due to the present temperature of the sun's surface, a little less than 6,000 degrees. This temperature being very favorable to the registry of the iron spectrum.
Sources of solar energy. The internal temperature of many of the suns, even your own, is much higher than it is commonly believed. In the interior of a sun, practically no whole atoms exist. They are all more or less shattered by the intensive X-ray bombardment, which is indigenous to high temperatures. Regardless of what material elements may appear in the outer layers of the sun, those in the interior are rendered very similar by the dissociative action of the disruptive X-rays. X-rays is the great leveler of atomic existence. Rodney, you want to try the next one? I think he's back. Rodney?
Bless your heart, Rodney.
Sure, you can handle it.
Okay,
Okay.
let's go.
The surface temperature.
Top,
Hello, Rodney.
the surface temperature of yours. Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. No. Go
The
ahead.
surface temperature of the sun is almost rapidly possessing this penetration.
No, we lost you again, Rodney. The surface. Let me just read it. The surface temperature of your sun is almost 6,000 degrees, but it rapidly increases as the interior is penetrated until it attains the unbelievable height of about 35 million degrees in the central regions. All of these temperatures refer to your Fahrenheit scale. Rodney, you're breaking up so bad you get about every third word for some reason. I don't know why. Millie, would you take the next one, please?
All of these phenomena are indicative of enormous energy expenditure and the source of solar energy, named in the order of their importance are: 1. Annihilation of atoms and eventually of electrons. 2. Transmutations of elements, including the radioactive group of energies thus liberated. 3. The accumulation and transmission of certain universal space energies. 4. Space matter and meteors, which are diving into the blazing suns. 5. Solar contractions. The cooling and consequent contraction of a sun yields energy and heat sometimes greater than that supplied by space matter. 6. Gravity action at high temperatures transforms certain circuitized power into radiative energies. 7. Recapture light and other matter which are drawn back into the sun after having left it, together with other energies having extra solar origin.
Okay. Let's keep going. Hang on before you go on, dear. Let me redial everybody one more time, Millie. Okay? Maybe it's my end. I'll call you right back. Skype has just turned into garbage since Microsoft took over. It's just useless almost.
Well, this is the worst we've had in quite some time. It's
Yeah.
actually been working quite well. I think it's because, a lot of people are online tonight.
Yeah. Millie, are you back?
I'm back and I can see you
Okay.
trying to connect to Rodney.
No.
Oh,
All right. Sweetie, go on. Read the next one.
There exists a regulating blanket of hot gases, sometimes millions of degrees in temperature, which envelops the suns, and which acts to stabilize heat loss and otherwise prevent hazardous fluctuations of heat dissipation. During the active life of the sun, the internal temperature of 35 million degrees remains about the same, quite regardless of the progressive fall of the external temperature.
You might try to visualize 35 million degrees of heat in association with certain gravity pressures as the electronic boiling point. Under such pressure and at such temperature, all atoms are degraded and broken up into their electronic and other ancestral components. Even the electrons and other associations of ultimatons may be broken up, but the suns are not able to degrade the ultimatons.
And this is all natural.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it's supposed to do.
What's going on with Rodney here? I
He may have just dropped down.
can't- He may have.
just-
Millie, would you take the next one?
okay. These solar temperatures operate to enormously speed up the ultimatons and the electrons, at least such of the latter as continue to maintain their existence under these conditions. You will realize that high temperature means by way of the accelerations of atomic and electronic activities when you pause to consider that one drop of ordinary water contains over 1 billion trillion of atoms. This is the energy of more than 100 horsepower exerted continuously for 2 years. The total heat now given out by the solar system sun, and each second is sufficient to boil all the water in all the oceans on Urantia in just 1 second of time.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's,
Wow.
it's curious that they would talk about horsepower.
Yeah, it is, and and one drop of water too. So if we learn how to really learn our physics well, we could take one drop of water and power almost all the world.
What should we do with the rest?
Yeah, go ahead, dude.
Only those suns which function in the direct channels of the mainstreams of universe energy can shine on forever. Such solar furnaces blaze on indefinitely, being able to replenish their material losses by the intake of space force and analogous circulating energy. But stars far removed from these chief channels of recharging are destined to undergo energy depletion, gradually cool off and eventually burn out.
Such dead or dying suns can be rejuvenated by a collisional impact or can be recharged by certain non-luminous energy islands of space or through gravity robbery of nearby smaller suns or systems. The majority of dead suns will experience revivification if these other evolutionary techniques. Those which are not thus eventually recharged are destined to undergo disruption by mass explosion when the gravity condensation contains the critical level of atomic condensation of energy pressure. Such disappearing suns thus become energy of the rarest form, admirably adapted to energize other more favorable situated suns. So they explode and the energy goes to other suns. Rodney, you want to try the next one? Solar energy reactions? Are you back, Rodney?
I'm back. I don't know problem.
All right, we'll give it a try. Try the first paragraph of 8.
Look,
Hello, Rodney. Solar actions.
I just read that.
Okay.
These suns, which are encircled in the space energy channels, solar energy is liberated by various complex nuclear reaction chains, the most common of which is the hydrogen-carbon reaction. And this metamorphosis acts as an energy catalyst, since it is in no way actually charged by this process of converting hydrogen into helium. Under certain conditions of high temperature, the hydrogen penetrates the carbon nuclei. Since the carbon cannot hold more than such protons, when this saturation state is attained, it begins to emit protons as fast as new ones arrive. In this reaction, the ingoing hydrogen particles come forth as a helium atom.
All right. I'm not going to expand on any of that. Okay. Millie, did you take the next one?
I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah.
Reduction of hydrogen content increases the luminosity of a sun. In the sun's destined to burn out, the height of luminosity is attained at the point of hydrogen exhaustion. Subsequent to this point, brilliance is maintained by the result process of gravity contraction. Eventually, such a star will become a so-called white dwarf, a highly condensed sphere.
Okay.
In large suns, small circular nebulae, in which hydrogen is exhausted and gravity contraction ensues. If such a body is not sufficiently opaque to retain the internal pressure of support for the outer gas regions, then a sudden collapse occurs. The gravity electric changes give origin to vast quantities of tiny particles devoid of electric potential, and such particles readily escape from the solar interior, thus bringing about the collapse of a gigantic sun within a few days. It was such an immigration of these runaway particles that occasioned the collapse of the giant nova of the Andromeda Nebulae about 50 years ago. This vast stellar body collapsed in 40 minutes at Urantia time.
Yeah, we reported that on the planet. As a rule, the vast exclusion of matter continues to exist about the residual cooling sun as extensive clouds of nebular gases. And all of this explains the origin of many types of irregular nebula, such as the Crab Nebula, which has its origin about 900 years ago, and which still exhibits the mother spheres as a lone star near the center of this irregular nebular mass. Now, this is not the most interesting paper we've read. Millie, would you take the next one?
Number 9, sun stability. The larger suns maintain such a gravity control over their electrons that light escapes only with the aid of the powerful X-rays. These helper rays penetrate all space and are concerned in the maintenance of the basic ultimatonic association of energy. The great energy losses of the early days of the sun, subsequent to its attainment of maximum temperature, upwards of 35 million degrees, I wish they quit saying 35 million degrees, are not so much due to light escape as to the ultimatonic leakage. These ultimaton energies escape out into space to engage in the adventure of electronic association and energy materialization as a veritable energy blast during adolescent solar time.
Atoms and electrons are subject to gravity. The ultimatons are not subject to local gravity, the interplay of material attraction, but they are fully obedient to absolute or paradise gravity, to the trend, the swing of the universal and eternal circle of the universe of universes. Ultimatonic energy does not obey the linear or direct gravity attraction of nearby or remote material masses, but it does ever swing true to the circuit of the great ellipse of the far-flown creation.
That's interesting that the ultimate doesn't respond to gravity. Their own solar center radiates almost 100 billion tons of actual matter annually, while the giant suns lose matter at a prodigious rate during which earlier growth, the first billion years. A sun's life becomes stable after the maximum of eternal temperature is reached, and the subatomic energies begin to be released. And it is just at this critical point that the larger suns are given to convulsive pulsations. Millie, would you take the next one? I think we've lost Rodney for good.
Sun stability is wholly dependent on the equilibrium between gravity, heat, contention, tremendous pressures, counterbalanced by unimagined temperatures. The interior gas elasticity of the sun upholds the overlying layers of various materials, and when gravity and heat are in equilibrium, the weight of the outer material exactly equals the temperature pressure on the underlying interior gases. In many of the younger stars, continued gravity condensation produces ever-heightening internal temperatures, and as internal heat increases, the interior X-ray pressure of supergas winds becomes so great that in connection with the centrifugal motion, a sun begins to throw its exterior layers off into space, thus redressing the imbalance between gravity and heat.
physics class, isn't it? Okay.
Your own sun has long since attained relative equilibrium between its expansion and contraction cycles, those disturbances which produce the gigantic pulsations of many of the younger stars. Your sun is now passing out of its 6 billionth year. At the present time, it is functioning through the period of greatest economy. It will shine on as of present efficiency for more than 25 billion years. It will probably experience a partially efficient period of decline as long as the combined periods of its youth and stabilized function.
So it's got about 25 billion years. We don't have to worry about it for a while, do we? Okay, origin of inhabited worlds. Some of the varied stars in or near the state of maximum pulsation are in process of giving origin to subsidiary systems, many of which will eventually be much like your own sun and its revolving planets. Your sun was in just such a state of mighty pulsation when the massive Angana system swung into near approach, and the outer surface of the sun began to erupt veritable streams, continuous sheets of matter. This kept up with ever-increasing violence until nearest opposition, when the limits of solar cohesion were reached. In a vast pinnacle of matter, the ancestor of the solar system was disgorged. In other words, all the planet work is disgorged. In similar circumstances, the closest approach of the attracting body sometimes draws off whole planets, even a quarter of a third of a sun. These major extrusions from certain peculiar cloud-bound types of world spheres, much like Jupiter and Saturn. So that's how these planets evolved, right? Millie.
The majority, turn it on, it's on. The majority of solar systems, however, have an origin entirely different from yours, and this is true even of those which were produced by gravity tidal techniques. But no matter what technique a world building obtains, gravity always produces the solar system type of creation. That is, a central sun or dark island with planets, satellites, sub-satellites, and meteors.
So no matter what the origin, we always end up with a solar system, right? All right, here.
The physical aspects of the individual worlds are largely determined by mode of origin, astronomical situation, and physical environment. Age, size, rate of revolution, and velocity through space are also determining factors. Both the gas contraction and the solid accretion worlds are characterized by mountains, and during their earlier life, when not too small, by water and air. The molten, split, and collisional worlds are sometimes without extensive mountain ranges.
So they all end up with water and air, some of them more mountainous than others, right? During the early stages of all new worlds, earthquakes are frequent, and they are all characterized by great physical disturbances. Especially is this true of the gas contraction spheres, the worlds born of the immense nebular rings, which are left behind in the wake of the earlier condensation and contraction of certain individual suns, like Saturn, right? Planets having a dual origin, like Urantia, passed through a less violent and storming youthful career. Even so, your world experienced an early phase of mighty upheavals, characterized by volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, and terrific storms. So we know that from our history, right? Millie.
Urantia is comparatively isolated on the outskirts of Satania, your solar system, with one exception being the farthest removed from Jerusalem, while Satania itself is next to the outermost system of Melchizedek, and this constellation is now traversing the outer fringe of Nebadon. You were truly among the least of all creation until Michael's bestowal elevated your planet to a position of honor and great universe interest. Sometimes the last is the first, while truly the least becomes the greatest.
So there's only one planet in our solar system that's out farther than us, right? Presented by an archangel in collaboration with the chief of Nebadon power centers. Whew. That was a tough one to get through, wasn't it?
It was awful.
Let's say a little prayer. We'll close for tonight. Lord, thank you for such a beautiful day, and thank you for this knowledge. It's hard for us to understand much of it. We thank you for this revelation. We thank you for these people that come to join us and listen to these messages. We say this in the name of your Son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen. Thank you for joining us. Please come join us again.